norms. And with those norms, we encourage you to do the same thing with your students when you're having a Google Meet with them as well. Just let them understand what the expectations are. And we have even included an expectations guide here. So this is one that Lauren had put together. And once again, you have access to the slide deck, so you can make a copy of this and personalize it with your own Bitmojis. Just letting your students know what the expectations are before they get started in any of your Google Meets. So tonight, and let me see if I can undo my, hello, I'm Angie White, the Director of Instructional Technology here in Oldham County. And we have Rosalind Manning with us. If Rosalind wants to turn on her camera.
Hello.
So, Rosalind. And then we have Lauren Rata, our second digital learning coach. So there are digital learning coaches for Oldham County, and one of the two of them is assigned to your building to work with you in a coaching capacity. So be sure to check them out at any point in time you have an opportunity to work with them. They're awesome. So the next thing that I wanted to look at is our online teaching standards. And although you may not be aware of it, there are 11 standards for quality online teaching. And these were created by iNicole. And the committee that created these came from different backgrounds and expertise in K-12 online learning. And they just believe that it's very important that students have access to the highest quality online teachers. And we're not going to cover these deeply tonight. We just wanted to make you aware of them. And we're going to be addressing 3 of these standards in this session. And once again, you'll have access to the slide deck, and the title is linked. So if you'd like to explore them further, you're welcome to go in and go into that link and check out the online teaching standards. And as we were preparing, we were looking at different sources of research, and Fisher, Fry, and Hattie have a new book out called the Distance Learning Playbook. And this quote really stood out. It says, "Assessment is assessment. Any assessment can be used formatively or summatively. In other words, there's nothing magical about the tool itself. It's what you do with it or don't do with teaching practices." And in this quote, they mentioned formative and summative assessment. So I just wanted to take a few minutes as we're looking at digital feedback and assessment to look at the difference between formative and summative assessments. So in a balanced assessment system, both summative and formative assessments are an integral part of information gathering. And if we depend on one or the other too much, then we don't have a good reality of our students' achievement in our classroom. That becomes unclear. So think of summative assessment as a way to gauge that particular point in time, a student's learning relative to content standards. And although the information that we get from these types of assessments is really important, it can only help in evaluating certain aspects of the learning process. Summative assessments happen far too down that learning path to provide any information to the classroom level or to make any kind of instructional adjustments to accomplish that. So because formative assessment is part of that instructional process, that's what we need to accomplish this. So when incorporated into classroom practice, a formative assessment provides information needed to adjust that teaching and learning while it's happening. And formative assessment informs both teachers and students about that student's understanding at that point. And you can make those timely adjustments. And those adjustments helps the students to achieve those targeted standards-based learning goals within a set time frame. So now I'm going to turn it over to Lauren and Rosalind. They have some great tools to help you with both formative and summative assessment in those feedback tools.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to transition is what, like she said, and so I'm actually going to present my screen. So give me just a second while I get this on. And so the first thing that we're going to go over, as you can see, is kind of like the outline. So we want to talk to you a little bit about what that's going to look like. Get this up. Here it comes. All right, let me know when you can see my screen. Okay. There we go. All right. So our time together during all of these sessions, I know this is session 1, but first we'll start off with thinking about assessment and feedback and why they're important. And then we're going to always dig into some tools. And so that's what this session is now leading to. The first time around, we're going to first dig into a deeper tool and take a little bit more time with it. And then we're going to quickly dig into 2 quick tools. And then we're always going to leave you with 1 to explore or go into kind of later on your own. Some of these tools lend themselves to assess student understanding as well as give meaningful feedback. And sometimes some of the tools that we discuss with you during our sessions might just cover 1 component, and that'll always be indicated on those slides. And let's look at what that looks like. So you'll notice within our slide deck, first we have, and we kind of made it color coded. So first the tool will be there on that left-hand side and it will be blue. Now that will be the what it is slide to kind of give you some background knowledge if you've never heard of that tool before. And then we will provide you also with links on how to get started. And so it's kind of meant to where we will dig deeper into the assessment and feedback. So if you have never used that tool before, this is a great slide to always come back to be able to learn that actual platform to how to get started on your own. And then we'll lead into either, or sometimes both, a green colored slide with that's the assessment, how it can be used as an assessment tool in your classroom. And then that tool also may have color coded and purple feedback tools as well. And so here in my example of the first tool we're going to be looking at is Google Forms. It does have both assessment and feedback components to it. And then at the end, we will always have kind of this salmon colored slide. And those are examples and resources for later because we don't have a lot of time to dig into each of these, but we also though know the importance of you being able to see, well, that sounds like a great way to assess my students or a great way to give feedback, but now what? How can I use this within my instruction to make it intentional? And so these are examples, mentors, K through 12 of how you can use that in additional videos. And so that's kind of how our slides are organized to give you some background knowledge. So let's dig into our very first tool, and we're going to be looking at Google Forms. And so this is that tool that is that G Suite application that a lot of you have probably seen before. It allows you to create surveys, which then you can use to assess your students and collect data about their performance. And so if this is not a tool you have seen before, we have a lot of links here, and these are great. I know it looks like a lot, but they're very brief videos because you might just need a short little video about, well, how do I get started? Or maybe you know how to get started, but now, well, what's next? What are those settings? And so these are just brief little videos and tutorials to show you how to get started using Google Forms if you are not familiar with it yet. But what we want to dig into with most of our time here on this tool are those supportive tools for assessment and feedback. So the first thing I'd like to talk to you a little bit about is, well, how can you use Google Forms to assess your students for understanding? First, I want to talk to you about a helpful tip because a lot of us are possibly 3rd through 12th grade, and you're probably using Google Classroom. Just a helpful tip, if you're using Google Forms for assessment, these can be integrated, as you probably know, within Google Classroom. You can do that in 2 ways. You can go ahead and create a Google form, and then there within that classwork tab, you can add it, or you can, right from that classwork tab, when you go to add an assignment, there's actually a spot where you can just choose to add that quiz and create one directly from there. So you have options. So you've got that natural classroom integration. But what I really want us to look at are how you can embed multimedia from YouTube to assess your students, as well as go to section based on response. That might be another tool you might want to look at. So let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to come out of the presentation so I can show you in real time. And so the first tool that you might use for assessment is using here. So here I've got a form. Another best practice I did want to tell you about is that using first and last name, that's great for later when you want to sort your data. I usually like to do that. Even though a lot of people like to collect email addresses, it's also helpful sometimes to ask your students, teachers, whoever you're asking to participate in these forms for their first and last name for sorting. But what I want to show you is how you can actually add that multimedia. And so one of the options here in this toolbar, this is how you add content to your form. You can come here, and this tool down here kind of looks like a YouTube video, is add video. And so what you could do within Google Forms is you can video search right from here. So I'm going to stick with the theme of American Revolution right now today. So you can either search for videos right from here, or if you already have that YouTube video that you can paste in here, that link, that URL that you've already viewed, you can do that as well. And so I'm going to type in, I like to use my keywords wisely. There we go. And I have seen this one before. I'm very familiar with Crash Course. I've vetted it. There we go. And as you can see, it embeds that video right here for you, which is very nice. So after, you can title, you can say, please watch the following video and answer the questions below. And so that allows you to just embed the video right there on its own. So then after, you can add questions. So this kind of reminds me, if you're familiar with the tool of Edpuzzle, where you can have students watch something and then ask them questions for that assessment. So then after, I could add questions, and I could add questions like, tell me one cause of the American Revolution below. And so then you can embed those questions after. And so we have, so we can, if I wanted that to be a short answer, if you're familiar with these tools here, you can change the type of question you're asking or the type of response you're looking for to assess your students. So that is that multimedia feature. You can add videos and then ask them questions right afterwards to monitor further understanding. The next, what I'd like to show you, the next tool that you can use for assessment is something called Go To Section Based on Response. And this is an absolutely awesome tool. Why I really like this is it allows you to, it's a lot of pre-planning, I would say, as a teacher, and thinking ahead of, well, what do I want my form to look like? But after that, it allows you to assess students and right then either give them some support if they get the answer incorrect, or go ahead and give them some enrichment or let them move on if it's something they understand. And so I really enjoy this. Let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to come back over here to my test form, and I'm going to get rid of these that we just did. There we go. So I have a form kind of set out already because this does take some time. And so we want to be very intentional with our professional learning time right now. And so what you need to do is first, you need to think ahead and what would be your initial question? Because the Go To Section Based on Response, students or teachers, whoever you're giving this form to, need to first respond to something before you can tell them to go to a new section, right? And so I have their first and last name, but then here, first, I want them just to visit this Duxter site to read about those causes of the American Revolution. And so the first thing they would do is go there. And so let me show you what this looks like, even maybe in the preview mode. So for a student, what would this look like? And so they would put their first name in. And so here's my first question I set up, and this is where I have my sections. As you can see, these are intentionally laid out into different sections on my form. So first they would come here and they would read this website. After they read it, now here's that initial question that I talked about. So you have to have an initial question to then lead them to the next question. And so after reading, they have to be thinking about, which one of these is a cause? And so let me show you if the student got it incorrect, what it would do. So I set this up to where if they got it incorrect, it would go to a separate question based on that response. And so let's say that I thought that they were not able to, they had some travel restrictions. And now I know in my brain that's not right. So when I click next, it's taking me as a student to, and they don't know this necessarily, to watch this video to learn more about those causes again. So it kind of remediates them. Now let's look at, what if I chose the correct answer about not having representation? Now, whoop, sorry, I set that up wrong. So now what I wanted this to do is to take them on to something new. So let me show you what that looks like back here. So here I have my initial question. And then after that, I have where it would lead them to. So if they, let me set this up. There we go. So it's important that we have those separate sections and that we also lead them to, it has to be multiple choice. I have to make it a quiz here in the settings. So I've turned that on. And so now when I go to that answer key, I have made this the best fit answer and the only answer. And then now I have to make sure I've gone to go to section based on answer. And when I do that in my answer key, there we go. So once I have that set as that answer, now they can continue to the next section. And then I can, as you can see, after they watch this, I can either take them to my other sections here. And so that helps, like I said, to differentiate or to let them move on. So this link that it took them to, if they got it correct, would instead take them to this other website to see, well, now that they're upset, how can they now move on? So that is that branching. And you can also go back and watch these videos. So these are all links to videos that show you that as well, if you want more detailed directions on how that works. So let's look at now that feedback. Now, as you all know, feedback is really important. As you know from Hattie's research, that it's one of those top factors of that student achievement. It's actually one of the top 10. And so what I really like about Google Forms and using it for feedback is there are two different tools that they have embedded that you may not know about. One is called response validation, and the other one is called quiz answer feedback. Now, you might be thinking, well, when would I use each one of these? That response validation is meant for that immediate feedback right there in the form, whereas the answer feedback gives it, I call it semi-immediate feedback, because they do have to submit the form or turn it in before it tells them feedback about their correct and incorrect answers. And so let's look at what that looks like. Let's look at first this response validation. So here I have a form, and I went ahead and I put some information in. And so with response validation, it's important to note that you have to have your answers, they have to be short answer to make it work. And so here I have an example of two different ways you could do this. I have a equation to solve, so it might be with numbers, but also want you to know that you could also make this like a fill in the blank and also do short answer. So I have two different examples here for you. So like I said, the first thing is it has to be, I've typed in my equation and I want students to solve it. And I've made sure that the answer type was set to short answer. That's really important. If you don't set it to short answer, you will not get this response validation option down here. I like to call this your skinny snowman down here at the bottom. So let me even show you what that looks like. So if I change it to paragraph, all of a sudden, look, oh, it should change that for me. I say that right. Check boxes. Okay, it must be stuck. I promise you have to have a short answer in there for it to work. And then I can check off response validation. Then you need to think about this. For the actual answer, do you want it to have be a number? Do you want it to be text? There's different options of how students can respond. Also, though, it's important that you have to have that answer key in there. So I need to have my answer of what it should be. so that students know if they've gotten it correct or incorrect. So there we go. Got my correct answer in there. So now here under the type of response I'm accepting, if it's an equation, obviously, I'm going to want a number. I needed to select, well, what type of number? So it depends on what mathematical equation you're asking. I want to make it equal to. The answer has to be 96 if you were solving this with PEMDAS. And so my number, the answer needs to be 96. And this custom error text here, that is that error message that students will receive. So think about in your classroom as a teacher, what could you do to support them if you got that incorrect? So for me, thinking about 5th grade order of operations, I always told my students, if they didn't solve it correctly, be sure to check the order of operations of PEMDAS so they can resolve and solve. You could also, I could see you pasting in a link here maybe of you modeling how to solve this so that they can understand for next time. It also could be another helpful video that you find to support them, or even a passage, something for them to reread. You can input that all right here. And so let me show you what that looks like. So now, as a student, if I was taking this, and let's say I entered the answer, I thought the answer was 12. My keyboard is, there we go. The keyboard is not working. There it goes. All right, as you can see, I typed in the incorrect answer. It says, be sure to check the order of operations of PEMDAS and resolve. Also, if I had a video link, that would post here for students to rewatch. So it physically will not let them submit this form. But let's see, what if there we go. See, when I typed in the correct answer, that answer validation let the student know, okay, this is an acceptable answer, and it lets them move on. And so that's response validation and how it can be used for that immediate feedback. And then the same thing, it works also. Here for that short answer, I could type in, so if it's a fill in the blank, I would put germination here, and same thing. It's text this time. It has to contain the word germination. And then I gave my feedback here. If the student did not get that correct, I asked them to watch this video and try again. And so that video is a YouTube video that I have vetted and watched of that process of the plant life cycle. And so that would help the student to be able to relearn that concept and then right then and there fix their misconception. So that's response validation. And like I said, it has to be a short answer response here, as well as you have to input what the correct answer should be. And you can also insert that error message, so it kind of supports them. So that is one option. The next option for giving feedback within a Google form is called answer feedback. And so that answer feedback, although it gives them that feedback, I call it that semi-immediate feedback. And so you can also watch this video here within this link if you want to learn how to do that step by step, but I'd also like to show you what that looks like. So here I have a question kind of already set up. What's important with answer feedback to know is that first, you have to make this a quiz. And to make something a quiz, you come up here to your settings, and then under quizzes, you have to swipe this on and make it a quiz. Something to think about is I did share that this gives them feedback, but it's after they click that submit button at the bottom. So as a teacher, do you want them to get that feedback just right then after they submit, because it'll let them view their score and see what they got incorrect and correct and give them your feedback? But if you want them to go back to it a later time, I actually recommend this clicking here later after manual review, because what this does is it turns on email collection and it emails the kids their results. And so not only right then can they see it, but maybe the next day they need to go back and they need to see that feedback, then they cannot have it there within their email to continue to go back to. And so you can choose how you want to do that. So here's a sample question that I made about the American Revolution again. And so it's turned on quiz. Also, we have to actually give it an answer key to then give that feedback. And so I need to, after you swipe that on, you'll notice now there's an answer key option. And so I selected what the correct answer should be. And then I'm able to add feedback for correct answers and feedback for incorrect answers. And so although this isn't custom feedback for each student, it is custom for if they got it correct, that you can kind of reiterate or make them move on also if you wanted to enrich them, or you could refer them to a lesson, a video, an article, something to read to fix that misconception. And so if it was a correct answer, I said, great job. I agree the king was taxing them. Now, please read this article to learn more about it. And I was able to add this link. So what I do like about answer feedback is it does allow you additional options like putting links in and videos, a little bit easier than just pasting in URLs. And then if they got it incorrect, this is the video that they would watch. You can click done. So I have about 1 minute until it's time for me to move over. So let me show you what that looks like. So I showed you this one, so it won't let me move on until I answer these. There we go. And then now down here, let's say I said that this was the only correct answer. When I say submit, I can view my score. And as you can see down here now, since I got it correct, it told me I got it correct. And look, it says, here's my feedback as a student. Great job. I agree. Now read this article. So that's very helpful. Now, if I wanted to try it again. Now let's look at this one. Let's say I got it incorrect. I selected this. And now when I view my score, as you can see as a student, it looks different. Now I got it incorrect, unfortunately, but it says, it told me what the correct answer is. And now it wants me to rewatch this video to help me to fix that misconception. So that's how that answer feedback works, whether it's a correct answer or an incorrect answer. So very helpful tools. And last but not least, here are Google Forms examples and resources for later that I want to showcase. After you dig into these tools, if you want to see those examples of what that looks like, make sure that you go here to these links and you watch these or view them to help you to see how you might be able to use this in your instruction. So let me come on back here and I'm going to stop presenting and turn it over to Miss Roslyn.
Hello, I am going to go over with you today Quiz first, and then I will go over Google Drawings with you. So I'm going to first share my screen with you just so that you can see the slides and as I'm going through those tools as well. Okay, so Quizzes is very similar to Kahoot if you've ever used Kahoot before. It's basically just game quizzes to build student engagement and collect assessment data from your students. You can use this in face-to-face instruction, synchronous online instruction, or even asynchronous online instruction. I've got some resources here on how to get started. This is just a quick video showing you just how to sign into Quizzes, and also if you're using Google Classroom, to be able to import your Google Classroom classes into Quizzes as well. So I first wanted to look at some of the things that Quizzes can do. And all of these links here are links to videos that I've created to show you how to use Quizzes. And so when you're ready to create a Quizzes assignment for your students, you can choose to create student-paced live quizzes or instructor-paced live quizzes, or even you can assign it as homework. And so those student-paced live quizzes are exactly what they sound like. It allows students to go at their own pace, and you can assign certain time frames for each question. So if you want them to have 30 seconds for each question, you can put that for the questions. And then after 30 seconds, if they haven't answered, it's going to kind of move them forward. So while it is student paced, you do still have a little bit of control over how much time they spend on each question. And then the instructor-paced live quizzes are kind of similar to Pear Deck, if you've ever used Pear Deck, where you can kind of force students to move on to the next question. And then for assigning it as homework, that is exactly what it sounds like. It just allows them to work on that at their own time, away from school or just away from the classroom. And so I've got some links here to show you how to add questions. Quizzes also allows you to do what they call teleport questions, and that basically just allows you to look at a big question bank and insert them directly into the quiz that you want to use. And then you can also share quizzes with colleagues. And so if I wanted to share a quiz with Lauren, I could type in her email address and it would just send her an email with a direct link to that quiz that she could then use with her classes. So a lot of really great features there for assessment. So what I want to do quickly, just to show you what this looks like as a student, I'm going to share a student-paced live quiz with you, and it's very low pressure, very kind of silly questions, and it's only 3 quick little questions. So I'm going to go ahead and start this live quiz for you. And I'm just going to go classic mode. You can see here, you can set these settings before you push a quiz out to students, how many times they can participate in the quiz. Participants can only use fun quiz is generated names. You can change some of these settings down here where it shuffles the answers or shows a leaderboard. I'm going to turn that off just for these purposes. And then Quizzes also does something where they show memes, like funny little memes after each question. But if you feel like for your kids that might be distracting, you can turn that off. You can even down here select what kinds of memes that it shows. I'm just going to keep it on random. And so I'm going to hit continue. And then you will, in another tab, or maybe even on your phone, because you can do this on your phone, go to joinmyquiz.com, and then you can type in this join code. And so I'll give you just a couple of seconds to get joined in on there, and I promise, very low pressure, not content based at all. And I'll copy this link too and put this in the chat as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start this quiz. And you'll hear it kind of play some fun music. And then as a teacher, this is what I'm seeing on my screen. And I'm sorry, I set some correct and incorrect answers just to kind of show you what it looks like. But obviously, there's no correct or incorrect answer to these questions. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end this quiz. So that's kind of what students will experience if you give them a quiz is. Of course, these were just some silly questions that I typed up really quickly, but you can see here on my screen with the overview, I can see each participant and which question they got correct and incorrect. I can even look at question 1 and see what percentage of students or participants in this case scored correctly on that. And then you can also look at this by question if you would like to do that. 5 correct, 2 incorrect. And then, question 2, select the cutest image. I am really surprised no one or more people did not select the hedgehog, because I just think that's precious. So you've got a nice little kind of a review of the results as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and exit this. And it may be that you want to go back later to see those results. You can do that on Quizzes. Here is kind of my dashboard or my main page. If I go to reports, I can click here, and right away I see on this quiz, I got 33% accuracy. So I might need to go back and reteach some of these things here. You'll also see, like, these are some past quizzes that I've used. We've got yellow, which is, not super fabulous either. And then you've got green here. So it's color coded as well, which I like. So I can get this feedback, this assessment and feedback quiz stuff again by clicking on that, and then I can see a nice little layout. You can sort it by score, accuracy, by name. You can even download this, like if you wanted to keep this in your Google Drive or something like that, you can do that as well. You can email parents if you would like to do that. So you've got some options here. Quizzes does not, though, have any at least with the free version, does not have any like direct feedback pieces included in the tool itself. And so this would be something that you might use for a formative assessment, where you could maybe talk with your class about, like, oh, we all kind of struggled with this question, and why did we struggle with that? And here's what we're going to do to kind of fix that. So really, really great for some formative assessment. Here on this slide, I just have for you some examples and resources for later. The first 2 links here are directly from Quizzes. So this was a nice little introduction to Quizzes, a little slide deck. And then I also linked their help center for you as well. And then just some other links and resources that once you're ready, you might want to explore those a little bit as well. I am going to now look at Google Drawings with you. I love Google Drawings. It is one of my favorite tools in Google. I've used it for students to collaborate on. I've used it to kind of design my own images and that sort of thing that I want to use in the classroom. But this can also be a really great assessment tool, and not just a fun little thing that's included in our G Suite. So it is a collaborative app, just like Google Docs or Google Slides, and it's included in that G Suite platform. Students have access to it. You have access to it. It was originally designed for diagramming, but you can also use it to do all sorts of other things. You can, I'm thinking, do like brain maps and brainstorming things, and do like Venn diagrams and those types of things as well. You can also create a template for something in Google Drawings. So for example, I'll use the Venn diagram again. If I want students comparing and contrasting 2 ideas or 2 pieces of reading or 2 cultures or whatever it may be, I can go ahead and create that Venn diagram in Google Drawings and post it into Google Classroom as make a copy for each student. And that way, they kind of have the layout of what I'm looking for, and they can fill in the information the way that they would like to, or the way that they know. So I'm going to show you here how to get to Google Drawings. You can get there in My Drive by going to New, and you'll have to go to More, and then go to Google Drawings, and it will bring you to this template here. You've got this gray and white checkerboard background, and this just means that it is transparent. And so if you right click with a mouse, obviously it's a right click, but on your Chromebook, it's that trackpad. You're going to take 2 fingers and press down at the same time. And so you can change your background to different colors. It can be a solid color, or it can be more textured with a gradient or something like that. One of my favorite features in Google Drawings is actually their diagram feature. A lot of people don't know this is here. You do have images. You can insert images, text boxes, shapes, but the diagram feature is really wonderful, and the piece that I could see really being used for assessment. So if you go to Insert Diagram, you will see that you've got different types of diagrams over here. You've got the grid, the hierarchy, timeline, process, relationship, and cycle. And so I might want students to explain to me the process of something, maybe like the scientific method or something like that. And so once you click on that, you have even more options under here, and you can choose your steps. So 3 steps, 4 steps, or 5 steps. And currently each of the types, hierarchy, timeline, all of that, this first option is going to be 3, 4, or 5. And that's all they have right now. I'm going to pick 5. And then you can also go ahead and choose your color. So I'm going to choose pink. And then you can see all of these. This is what it's going to look like if it's pink. And so I'll select this one, and it automatically inserts that into my Google Drawing. Now, you'll notice if you click, for example, if I want to move this, it's going to move all of that. It's not going to move the entire diagram. So I'm going to undo that. In order to move the entire thing, I'm going to take my mouse above it and click and just select everything there on the page. And you'll see those blue lines show me that it's highlighted, it's selected everything. So now I'm going to click and drag the whole thing, and I might want to center it on the page. So I'm going to use those red lines to kind of figure out where it is centered on the page. There we go. Now I've got the horizontal and the vertical red lines. And so you can double click in these shapes and change the text how you would like to. You can even select it all, change the font, all sorts of things that you want to do with that. So I really love this diagram feature, because I just think it's got so many options there. You could use it in just about any content area that I could think of, and it does the design for you. So it's really great. I love that I can just click and it inserts it in there. So the diagram feature is wonderful. You can also, I wanted to share this with you really quickly before we have to move on. A lot of people do not know this, but shapes are actually like automatically text boxes. So a lot of times people will insert a shape and then they'll try to put a text box over it, which can make formatting very difficult. So I've inserted this circle. And what a lot of times people will do is go insert a text box, put it over it. But you can actually double click in the middle of your shape and insert text automatically into that shape. And so a shape is also can kind of function as a text box as well. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you. I want to quickly go over the feedback portion of Google Drawings and just share a quick little video with you. It's a video that Lauren put together, but I want to make sure I share that because with Google Drawings, you can insert comments. You can see, oh, where'd it go? Right here is an add a comment. So I can go ahead and add comments here. But there is also a really great extension that Lauren's done a video on that I want to share with you as well. So give me just a second. I'm going to stop presenting really quickly. And then I'm going to share another video with you. There we go.
In this recording, I'm going to show you how you could use the Talk and Comment extension, as you can see the icon right up here where I'm pointing, to give your students some effective feedback online. Now, you might be wondering, well, why would I use this tool? Sometimes it just makes that feedback, I think, more intimate for students to hear your voice, and it's even helpful, I feel like, for educators as well to get your thoughts across instead of having to actually type them in. So multiple reasons to use this extension. It is free, and you can find it in the Chrome Web Store. And after you have it downloaded and you allow permissions for it to use your microphone, then you'll start noticing it, as you can see right over here on the right side of my screen, pop up when you're on any website or any Google application, any social media, anything possible. And so you can then record your voice anywhere, and then you can paste it in wherever you're allowed to have comments. So like I said, it works on any site where you can actually paste in the link to your voice. So I'm going to continue to use my sample student work here. Like I said, it doesn't have to be in Google, but I just know that Google has that commenting tool, and we use this a lot in our district. And so that's what I'd like to showcase. So let's pretend like I've read over my students' work that they shared with me. And I want to talk through in a different way now. Here, where the child said that they liked going to the beach because it was fun, but they didn't exactly describe what was fun about it. I would love more details. And so when I'm ready, all I have to do is come over here to this talk and comment icon and click it. And it activates, as you can see, my microphone already. So I'm going to go back and click that X. But now that I'm ready, I have to have my thoughts ready. And so as soon as I push that button, I have to be ready to actually record my voice. I really like the way that you described how your favorite memory from this summer was going to the beach. Something I noticed, though, is you said you liked going to the beach was it was fun. Can you explain to me more about how was it fun? Was there something specific that you and your family did at the beach that made it so fun? I can't wait to hear your thoughts. And you click that green check when you're ready. And it tells me here that now my link is copied. Now I can paste it. I can even preview it if I want. I really like, as you can see, that's the preview, and I say, okay. And so now, since I'm in Google, all I have to do is paste that link anywhere. And so I could paste it down here if I wanted to, but I like to still do it over here in the comments. So I have already selected that. I'm going to click the comment box, and I'm going to paste that in and say comment. And so now that child, when they come here to their work, they can see my voice note. And when they click on it, they can hear my exact feedback. I really like the way that you described how your favorite memory from this summer was going to the beach. So as you can see, I feel like those voice notes are a little bit more intimate for the child, as well as it helped me as an educator to be able to effectively get my feedback out instead of typing it all in. Thank you so much for watching. And
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop presenting. So that was just a quick little video to show you how to use that talk and comment extension, which I think is wonderful and a great way to include some feedback for students in a Google Drawing or really any other Google app like Docs or Slides or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Angie for our closing.
And actually, I'm going to let Lauren talk a little bit about our digital dessert tonight before we get into the closing.
Absolutely. So what we're calling our digital dessert, or what you're going to kind of take with you, is our fourth tool called Screencastify. And as you all may know, we actually have a Screencastify premium subscription, which was purchased for every staff member in the district, as well as students. So some of you may not be aware of, yes, we have it, but also our kids do too. All you have to do is download it if you have not already, log in using your Oldham County credentials, and just go ahead and get started recording. If you will, visit these links here. These will help you to get started, what Dr. White is showing you. And what's great about Screencastify is it can be used for both asynchronous and synchronous instruction, both face-to-face instruction, blending learning models, everything. And then after this slide, we have a few additional slides. The first one, you'll see it's color-coded in green because these are some ideas of how you can use Screencastify to assess your students. So this would be your students using Screencastify. And then the next slide is for feedback. And so this would be the teacher using Screencastify, like Rosalind just showcased, how you could use it to show your students work and then give them feedback on top of it. And then the next slide. These are some examples and resources for later. And so make sure you check out those slides on your own. All of those are linked with videos, tutorials, websites to help you get started using that.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. So tonight, as we wrap up, we want you to spend a little bit of time in reflection. We have a really, really short survey for you, and this is how we will basically take attendance for this if you need professional learning hours. The results of this survey is where we'll be able to show your principal or office manager, whoever's keeping up with your hours, that you were in attendance tonight. But we do ask that you take just the last few minutes to complete that survey. That will help us in our development of the next 3 in this series so that we can make it even better. And so you're welcome to do that. And we do want to take some time as we wrap up tonight to take any questions. We've had a few in the chat, and I think we've resolved those. But any others?